USFRA wants you to engage. Today's farmers and ranchers have a story to tell about how food is grown and raised, and our app now makes it easy. Through the content in the news feed, you'll always be informed about the latest news in agriculture and from food companies. Engage connects to all major social media accounts, so you can easily share images, videos, articles, and more with one click. Go to fooddialogues.com/engage and download it now.
Thank you for joining us for our Agri-Pulse Washington Week in Review. I'm Spencer Chase, joined as always by Agri-Pulse Senior Editor Phil Brasher, discussing the week that was, agriculturally speaking, in Washington, D.C. And actually, we're going to talk about a couple of previous weeks. Obviously, the House and Senate both on recess last week for July 4th. We hope you enjoyed your various fireworks and hot dogs to celebrate the nation's birthday. But some action happening here in these last couple of weeks, and really the last couple of months, as the administration looks to sort out trade policy, and that trade policy is turning into tariff policy, as we see the administration impose billions of dollars in tariffs on other countries, specifically China, here in these most recent weeks. China retaliating with tariffs of its own, and then this week the administration announcing that it was looking into another $200 billion worth of tariffs against China. Phil, a lot of farmers getting very, very nervous about this. We saw a vote in the Senate this week to basically take a sense of the Senate on where they see this the role of Congress on this tariff issue. What, if anything, should we be looking for from the legislative branch or from the private agricultural sector as this tariff conversation continues?
I wouldn't expect a whole lot from Congress right now. There is certainly a lot of nervousness out of the country, and it's reflected here in the Senate vote that we saw this week. Very lopsided vote, but this was a non-binding resolution, so to speak, a motion to instruct negotiators on an appropriations bill. But Republicans are very reluctant to actually pass legislation or to take up legislation that would bind the president, keep him from using the tariffs the way that he has. Plus, we're pretty sure that the president would veto that legislation were it to get to him. So this was message sending and gave a chance for a number of nervous Republicans to state their case. Those nervous Republicans include the chairman of the Senate Agriculture Committee, Pat Roberts, as well as many others from farm states that are feeling the pinch of these tariffs already.
Mm-hmm. So a lot of Republican lawmakers getting nervous, a lot of Democratic lawmakers getting nervous, a lot of farmers getting nervous. There's just a lot of nervousness in general about the current trade situation as farmers and other business owners look to export their commodities. Obviously, more to come on that subject as we look at the administration potentially imposing another $200 billion worth of tariffs here in the next couple of weeks and months. But a number of other things going on as well, as the House and Senate are looking to produce a farm bill. Before we left you, we did see the Senate pass its version of the farm bill. The House had done so earlier on in the month of June. But now that we've seen House and Senate farm bill passage, Phil, we're still looking for that next piece of progress in terms of going to a conference committee. Any news on that as you've been walking the halls of Congress here this week?
Well, the ball is now technically in the court of the House of Representatives. When the Senate passed, basically what the Senate did was they passed their bill, put it in the House bill, substituted their bill for the House bill. They've sent it back to the House. The House now has to either accept that bill, which they won't do, or formally vote to start conference proceedings with the negotiations with the Senate on a final version. We expect them to do that. Don't appear to be in a hurry, but in the coming days, weeks, we certainly would expect that this month they will vote to go to conference. Should say that it appears that I'm told that the staffs of the House and Senate Agriculture Committee are already talking to each other. There's a lot of preliminary work that they have to do going through the bills that the House and Senate have passed, looking at things where the differences are and what differences can be settled fairly quickly, and which ones are going to have to be settled by the key senators.
Mm-hmm. And Phil, speaking of key senators, as you reported earlier this week, it appears that Senate Majority Leader Mitch McConnell plans on taking a pretty active role in the Farm Bill conference process here this year.
Right. I am told that not only is he going to be a conferee, but he's going to be active in the conference committee process, and that's pretty unusual. And it was also unusual, I should say, that Leader McConnell showed up at the Senate Agriculture markup. Not just showed up, but he stayed for a while. He has, as we've told you many times, a keen interest in provisions that are in the Senate bill to legalize the production of industrial hemp. And that's really helped move this bill along in the Senate. And I can tell you it's very significant that he's going to be on the conference committee and going to be involved, according to Agriculture Chairman Pat Roberts. Leader McConnell is going to be actually involved in the conference committee itself. So when they want to get this done, they can get it done.
Mm-hmm. And we, of course, cannot confirm any truth to the rumors that there are a number of legislative aides on Capitol Hill here now working to include hemp into their pieces of legislation just to draw the majority leader's attention. We, of course, can't confirm that. But the inclusion of industrial hemp does appear to have piqued Leader McConnell's interest. And obviously that'll be something to watch as the conference process goes forward between both House and Senate conferees. The House bill does not include that industrial hemp provision. The Senate bill, as we've reported, does. A couple other things really to mention before we let you go here. This is something that happened last week while we were on recess, and as was the House and Senate. EPA Administrator Scott Pruitt is now former EPA Administrator Scott Pruitt. He announced his resignation to President Trump in a letter last week. Andrew Wheeler now takes over as acting administrator of the agency, was formerly the deputy, confirmed by the Senate, and so now he takes on that role. He addressed EPA employees earlier this week, saying that essentially, I've got your back. I trust you that you are the experts on the policy issues that we're working on. That was something that a number of career staff felt they hadn't heard or hadn't felt during Pruitt's tenure. And the big question now for the folks and for the industries that we cover is what Administrator or Acting Administrator Wheeler's tenure will mean for the renewable fuel standard. Obviously, still a lot of questions on that front going forward, and really we won't have a firm answer until November when the EPA rolls out its proposed volume obligations for next year and for 2020 on biomass-based diesel.
Yeah, one thing you should add. One thing you can be clear about with the transition from Pruitt to Wheeler is the regulatory relief priority at EPA is going to continue. Just this week, they released a new expanded proposal to repeal the old Obama-era WOTUS rule, Waters of the U.S. rule, really to expand their, to beef up their legal case, and because they assume they will be challenged.
Yep.
And so they are very much moving forward with that repeal of the WOTUS rule and eventual replacement of it. Mm-hmm. And there are other parts of the regulatory agenda we have to be pretty certain they're going to be carried forward.
Mm-hmm. And one other thing we should mention before we let you go, something that was probably the biggest news in Washington this week outside of agricultural policy circles, and will have ramifications within those circles as well. President Donald Trump nominated Brett Kavanaugh to be the next Supreme Court justice. That coming as Justice Kennedy announced his resignation and retirement from the Supreme Court. So far, a lot of folks still gathering information about Mr. Kavanaugh and whether or not they plan to support him as the next Supreme Court justice. Obviously, a lot of party implications at play here as well, with a number of folks running for re-election and trying to decide how they want to parse out their support for that nominee as well. But we do know that he has weighed in on some agricultural cases before, and really has taken a keen interest in regulatory reform in some of his previous rulings as well.
Yeah, he's on the D.C. Circuit, which is the circuit court. A lot of people consider it the second most powerful court, second to the Supreme Court, and that's because it handles a lot of regulatory matters, including EPA. And so on the court for D.C. Circuit for 12 years, he's had a number of opportunities to often writing the opinions on issues involving EPA regulations. He's also been country of origin labeling and he was involved in a decision on ruling on that as well. The biggest issue where you can be sure that he's going to have an impact is on WOTUS. We just mentioned it, the Waters of the U.S. rule. The original Obama era rule, the 2015 rule, was actually written based on an opinion that Anthony Kennedy wrote back in 2005. Justice Kennedy is going to be gone, replaced by Brett Kavanaugh if he gets confirmed by the Senate, and he's almost, you can be pretty certain that he's going to be more likely to uphold whatever Trump's EPA puts forward in terms of a new rule.
Obviously, a lot of things to come on that, including the confirmation process and the full committee vote and full Senate vote on Brett Kavanaugh. But do you want to mention that that's something that's going on and something that we're going to be following here in the next couple of weeks, next couple of months, and something that you should stay tuned to Agri-Pulse.com for that and for many other purposes to stay up to date on all of your ag and food policy information. But I think that's going to do it for this week. So for Phil Brasher, I'm Spencer Chase. Have a good one.